We've only got around 6 months to go until quadruple UDC 21, and yeah, there definitely could be hardware, but I'm mostly talking about today what I want to see when it comes to software, and if they do quadruple UDC at the regular schedule, it should be the first Monday of June, so I'm just gonna go ahead and predict it June 7th, okay? Hold me to that. It's probably wrong, but June 7th, likely when they'll have an online event again, and here's what I'm really hoping for with iOS 15 and iPadOS 15. Let's begin. Alright, so I'll be completely honest with you, I don't have a lot of complaints with normal iOS. There's probably some of you out there really hoping that I'll say something like split screen multitasking, but I've tried it on smartphones before. I really just can't find the sweet spot. I love it on my iPad Pro, but with my iPhone, maybe it's because I'm using a 12 mini now, and it's like 5.4 inches, but yeah, split screen multitasking would not be great on a device, you know, this tiny, but maybe some of you with bigger phones would be open to it. I'm not saying I would be mad if they introduced it, but personally, I feel like you've got too little screen space, even on the 12 Pro Max, to actually have a decent amount of multitasking open apps at the same time. So that's not big on my list. I'm just going to reiterate what I was kind of wishing for last year. iOS 14 ended up being a lot bigger deal than I thought it was going to be, but there was still something on that list that they have not addressed, which is abandoning the whole pop-up segment of iOS, which is basically like when you hit the 20% battery or 10% battery, you get this pop-up, or sometimes settings wants you to enter a certain password, and all those types of things. They kind of addressed it because the main one I wanted them to fix was have the phone call animation be a drop down. So they've addressed that segment, and I'm grateful they did, but I would like it if there was no situation in which a pop-up presents itself. What really annoys me still to this day in iOS 14 is if I reach 20% with the 12 mini, I do a bit more regularly, it just has to interrupt whatever you're doing, whether you're playing a game or watching a video. Everything has to stop so you can know, hey, there's 20% battery left, and you have to press the dismiss button. It's very obnoxious, it's very unnecessary, and basically what I'm suggesting is turn every single pop-up into a notification. Okay, you want to notify me that the battery's at 10 or 20%, or you want to notify me that you need a password for a certain email and settings. That's great, just drop it down, you know, and I can swipe it away and address it later. You don't need to interrupt what I'm doing to tell me that the battery is low. You don't have to stop everything. And I don't really know of many situations other than maybe like Amber Alerts or maybe apps asking for permission of certain things. You know, there's occasional things I get that like you have to address the pop-up before anything else can happen on the phone, but currently I still feel like there's a few situations where it's like you didn't need to stop everything for this. Same with Siri, you know, they've reduced the animation to not take up the entire display, but still, if you're using Siri and then you try to tap and interact with the display, Siri disengages, and I want it to just be like on in the background so that even while I'm scrolling or even while I'm texting someone, if I'm talking to Siri, she can go do something, kind of like an actual assistant. You can be in the middle of something and then telling your assistant, hey, can you also check on this or do this? And then she can do that. She doesn't have to stop you from what you're currently doing. Personally, I would prefer it if Siri was more of a drop-down notification on top than a little blob at the bottom, because usually I'm typing or doing stuff at the bottom of the screen. She covers it up. So just basically, I don't like the pop-ups, and the other thing I would like fixed is widgets, which in their current state, they're pretty good. You know, they're better than they were in the past, but honestly, I haven't found myself taking advantage of that many because they're not interactive, which means, like, yeah, you can tap a certain part of the widget to open a certain part of the app, but that's all a widget can really do. You can't have, like, buttons and options on the widget itself that you can interact with so you don't even have to open the app. Maybe there's a RAM issue there, I don't know, but I think it'd be nice to have, like, a now playing widget so you can pause and play music from the home screen, and any number of third-party widgets that would let you control like smart bulbs in your home. If I didn't have to open Control Center or the home app to change my lighting or turn on the TV and that kind of thing, that would be really nice. So making widgets more interactive, and also a smaller one. I want like a tiny 2x1 widget. I don't need every widget to be like the entire screen. So other than that though, I must say iOS 14 has been pretty great for me and I'm pretty happy with it. However, what I do think could use a giant overhaul this year is iPadOS. Honestly, at the last developer conference, it felt like iPadOS got snubbed. Is that the proper term? It's basically like we were expecting iPadOS to get a big major overhaul and a bunch of new features in 2020, and it really didn't. The main one, I guess, that would be on my list is external monitor support. So iPads technically have it. They mainly do screen mirroring when you plug them into a monitor, but some apps are optimized for you to have, you know, in LumaFusion, you can have the preview on the monitor as you're editing on the iPad, and that's all great, but I want iPadOS to kind of have similar macOS features where you can actually have like a secondary home screen, and now that the iPad supports mouse, allowing people to have a tablet and laptop on the go that they can also dock to a big fancy external monitor and use a keyboard and mouse with it, and then more productivity apps can make their way onto the iPad. Also hoping for Final Cut, Xcode, Logic. I've been saying this for years, but here I am again. I'm saying it in 2021. iPadOS for me is only 2 or 3 applications away from being a fully fledged like MacBook replacement, because there's still, you know, a handful of situations where you're like, man, the iPad can't do that, or it's not great at transferring this type of file size, or I can't read this type of app and everything has to go through Photos. And it's definitely come a long way, and I will agree that the iPad has gotten exceedingly better at becoming a laptop replacement for more and more use cases. It just depends on the person, you know. Some of you, you're like, no way, iPad can't replace my laptop, but keep in mind, a lot of people just watch YouTube and check email with their laptop, so for them, yeah, an iPad can replace that. And for me, there's still just like Final Cut and a few features it has, and also like OBS and some live streaming applications that allow me to plug in external webcams to my Mac, and that is very necessary for my workflow. So if I could start bringing just those last few macOS features to the iPad, then I could even start to thinking about just transitioning all of my workflow to an iPad. Of course, when it probably gets a A14X chip, and it would be nice if they added some extra USB-C ports on it or something like that, but it's not so much a software criticism. Either way, I want to see iPadOS become even more productivity focused, and external monitor support would definitely help a lot on that list. Now, I regret to say I don't have a lot of opinions on watchOS 8 or the next version of macOS, because Big Sur was just kind of a big UI overhaul, so I'm hoping in the future updates they could just kind of iron it out, you know, fix a few bugs, fix the Messages app. It's also gotten better over time, but at the same time, the reply function is kind of all messed up, and maybe update some of the icons to just match iPadOS. I don't dig the whole skeuomorphic is different from the iOS interface and that kind of thing. It's just sort of weird. Perhaps in the future, I'll come up with a more dedicated wish list of things I would like changed for watchOS, but third-party watch faces, anybody? Yeah, we've been asking for that since the first Apple Watch came out. It's still not here. But yeah, mainly wanted to talk about iOS 15 and iPadOS 15 today. What are your guys' biggest requests? What software would you like to see brought to Apple this year? Definitely feel free to let me know. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you guys in the next one.